Yay!
Hey Victor,
Hello, Asko.
I guess this recording is for World Plone Day, so happy World Plone Day
Happy World Plone Day! Yay!
2022.
Yes,
So
once
my name is,
again.
yeah, again, my name is Asko and your name is,
It's Victor.
yeah, and we've been streaming Plone live for half a year. I think we've been trying to do this every Tuesday evening, I recall, just for fun, only for an hour or so. So, so not much done in that half a year, but a lot of fun.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. We usually met for, as you said, for basically having fun and show what we are doing, and yeah, we try to do that to entice people also to follow us and to try new things, especially in Volto and in things around it, or yeah, basically Plone 6 related, right? And yeah, if you want to follow us, yeah, just tune in every Tuesday night. Yeah.
At least when we are online. Every now and then we have
Exactly.
some weird issues. Something is always broken with setup when you do live. So that's just doing live.
Yeah.
And I was we have been doing small project every now and then, and I was checking what kind of things we have been doing. So we have a repository at GitHub, but I don't share it because it's not that high quality. So we started by doing small Volto project that maybe if we could do like something getting started with Volto, but back then we were not so well in schedule. So nothing to advertise. We were still also practicing, so not so high quality content. So then we just started having fun. So meeting each other once a week and do something fun. And every now and then you describe me some new features in Volto. And of course, my background for this year, for this year I'm at home, so I'm not working at office, and this has been my only touch with Plone for this year. So for me, this has been reason to keep in touch with you, of course, and with Plone, and then you have been teaching me Volto. So very selfish for me. And I found, so we were going through some how to extend block schemas in Volto, and then on top of that, related to that, we were trying. I learned with you how to make like dynamic widget where you can, and in one field define JSON schema for the widget, and then use the new features in Volto to render like a form from that widget data. So we are able to do a generic configuration content type, like you could do. We use one content type, create multiple pages, and then each of those pages would have different form schema. And my hypothetical use case for that was to make like a configuration content. You could have instead of enhancing Plone REST API for configuration endpoints, you could have configuration as a content somewhere hidden in Plone with that content type, and then write your front end stuff to use that content. Because when you have configuration as content, you can get benefits of all the security stuff in Plone also. But I was unable to make that demo work for today. So even we have tried to save our code, but because we only use like an hour on 2 for that, they are not so well, not high quality, so they don't always just work. But I was able to make work one demo what we did, and that was the focal point widgets. So we were reusing approach I used for our university site years ago to be able to. So our focal point is so we have images with different sizes, and we want browser to keep focus on specific point of the image independently on the size of the browser window, so that content authors, editors can choose what is the focal point of this image manually, and then the browser will always keep that focused, whatever was the browser window size. And I had an implementation for that for Plone 5, the classic Plone. And we tried to use the same libraries to implement that for Volto. And I think I got that working, that demo, so I can show that. Something we always was able to do. So let's create an example page here. And then like have any use for the focal point, we need to have images with limited space for them, and that works well with grids. So let's have 4-column grid here, and there is image for each column for this grid. And then we did have a nice test image for that demo back then, but I was unable to find that exact image. So
I just had a nice kitten. Oh, it wasn't this one? Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was some of these kittens, but
yes. Any kitten will do, right?
Yeah. So let's now use the same kitten for each block. And now, thanks to this focal point feature, we should be able to pick different point of that kitten for each column. So now we see this focal point feature in action. So yeah, so I have grid of images, and because that image is too big for the space, then we can choose the focal point, and the browser will pick that. And now if we resize the window, the browser will try to keep that point visible. So with bigger window, we see more of the kittens, and with smaller window, we see less of the kittens, but we still see the focal point we have chosen.
So yeah. Yeah, the idea was to build this widget, taking advantage of the JavaScript that we already had working in Plone 5. And while doing this exercise, so we show how to create a widget in Volto. So we all learn about that, and people can see the innards and how it works, right? And that I will say that it's not rocket science, right? It's only make work a component that needs an input, and then you get an output, and all the JavaScript that you put around, right? That it's just JavaScript, right? So it should work. I mean, and that was the reach. I mean, the purpose of this exercise, right? And as long as we have fun with it and we accomplish something, we are happy about it, and that was the thing, right?
Yes, and while we were doing this, we tried different approaches, and you mentioned that we made a widget, but we didn't apply it widget here because well, at first we did have that content type, but then we realized actually we want to use this focal point feature in blocks, in image blocks.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
in the image itself, so we add it to the image itself, right?
So we have the widgets here, but it actually enabled by customizing Volto. Let's see, did we use the file widget after all, or the image sidebar?
I don't remember. It was some time ago.
Yeah, I think.
Here
at least image sidebar we use. So image sidebar is this one.
Yeah.
This is the image sidebar component. So we needed to customize this whole component.
No, but we use the widget here. Yes. So what happens is that Volto image block still does not use a schema driven. It doesn't use a schema driven settings for render itself, right? So we had to put it manually because it was the way to go before we had schema generators in the block settings, right? So that's why we had to put it in here directly. But Yeah.
But even with the blocks and extender, do we still need to override customized whole widgets? I mean, there was
yes. I mean, unfortunately, and I hope to fix it, or we hope to fix it in the upcoming sprint, the Plone sprint next week. We have still to make all these stock blocks work with the schema-driven approach. And if we do that, you could extend it in a way that we showed back in another session, right? And use the scheme extenders for extend any of the stock blocks that we have in Volto. But yeah, as I said, it's still work in progress. Hopefully, we will address it soon, right? But it's.
do you remember that with the new schema extender stuff, can you override field from the schema?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
For sure.
So then we should be able to override the widgets that shows the static image with our
exactly, and add new ones as well.
Yeah.
So
with our focal point selector.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
And then we would be able to make this an add-on.
Exactly. although you can also publish an add-on with a customization, but it's not a good idea because once you shadow one thing, you cannot shadow it again, right? Or you will overwrite.
And it might go broken with Volto updates.
Exactly. So the best thing is to do it the right way.
Yeah.
TM.
Yeah. Yep. I must admit, I'm not completely sure that what we needed for this feature. We need the widget, of course, and then we use the widget as the sidebar, and then we also need to customize this view for the image. So image blocks, image view at least, and of course edit should also used in the edit page. But what was the code here? That one, it might be we only need to add some CSS here.
In the edit, I don't know if we touched something. Yeah, as you said, it was CSS overall.
Yeah, it's here. It's here.
There.
Yes.
Yeah, we put it manually. Yeah, but we can move that to or not. No, because it's in the data. Yeah.
Yeah, so that would need overriding the component.
Yes. Or come up with a way also to inject something here. Yeah, we'll have to think about it.
And did you already merge the image sizes for Volto? I mean the responsive images. Is this
not yet? So it's still something that we have to do during the sprint. Yeah, too many things to do. I know, but we're going to be quite a few people, and hopefully we will settle all the things that we have open. Yeah.
So as long as we need to override the image block view for this focal point stuff, we want to wait that responsive images to land. I assume it will rewrite this whole component.
Yeah, I mean, since this is a wrapper also, I can imagine that you can write a hook, a high order component, and if you need to override the image, then use that, right? To wrap the block. You can do that easily in your in the configuration. So you are effectively wrapping your image block with another component, and then pass down the props that you want. That will be another option. Another more not tricky really, but it will be a complete overhaul. It will be to create your own custom image block that supports focal point. Then you could make a one-off block out of it and swap the stock image block with the one with the focal point. Or we can make the focal point into the core, right? And then we'll have it. So it will be easy. But yeah, there are multiple options. Yeah. So that's the nice thing. about Volto, that you are not tied to only one thing, but you have several options.
Yeah, with the core option there is danger of getting into fight with the library we are using. So
yes,
the library
yes.
I'm using for this editor is very, very old one. But of course you only need this for any editor, then the display part is only CSS. And of course you could also fight with that is that really the right approach. So this this focal point widgets, it allows you to choose the coordinates for the focal point, and then it saves these coordinates with the block. And then while rendering, it just generates some CSS on base of that data. And then browser will use that to give that in focus. So as we see, it uses object position with object with cover, and that just does it. So this is the like most complete thing we managed to do.
Yes.
And this was like in early January, I think, and because this was so much fun and went so well, we wanted to try something more challenging. And then Timo came up with an idea that, hey, because in Plone you can do some operations that take a long time, like rename a folder with a lot of content. It would be fun if we would be able to do that asynchronously, at least from the user interface point of view, that our author would just go and make this rename or move, and then get the notification when that's been done. So we started doing like very minimal asynchronous task queue thing for Plone 6 for Volto, and we got pretty far with that. It's just that everything is I lost some of code at some point because I lost a hard disk and forgot to push those changes because, well, we were doing these lives on late evenings, and with the strict schedule, okay, when clock hits 9 p.m. you go to dinner and I got to do some homework and then to sleep, and there is not always time to do commit and push, or it is too easy to forget that. So I forget to do that, and then the week went, and then I lost my hard disk, and we lost some changes, and we have like some parts of it, but it's not in working condition currently. And I promised to like try to find a couple of hours to work on that at the Beethoven sprint next week. So hopefully I can pull that together again.
Yep, and that will be great.
And surprisingly, while we're doing it, I think at least my idea from that got pretty close to my old Plone 4 collective task queue asynchronous processing. So this one runs in the old Plone. It requires Z server from the old Plone, but the basic idea is the same. That it just queues URLs and payloads, and then use one Plone server thread to go through that queue, make those calls, and well, then it can complete those. And by default, it had just in-memory queue, but it also did support Redis, like a shared queue. So you could even have multiple Zio workers reading tasks from one Redis queue. And because it's just internally HTTP request for Z publisher. Like well inside Plone, not through the protocol, but inside Plone, it worked like all the Plone views that you already had, but you also would be able to register views that were only visible for this. So my idea was that at whatever code you call using collective task queue, that code is like is a browser view and has all the environment as a browser view. So it's just normal Plone code that you are calling with. So there are no special features there. It should just work, and we end up quite similar way with Plone 6 in our idea for this Plone 6 Volto task queue that is still in progress. So in Plone 6 we don't have a C server. Plone is run with as a Whiskey through Whiskey interfaces, so we don't have long running asynchronous things there, unfortunately. But then we realized, okay, but we do in Plone 6 we have Volto, and Volto is running on top of asynchronous Node.js runtime loop, asynchronous loop, IO loop, and so we could be running that worker in Node, and then in Volto server, in Plone frontend server with Volto, and then it could read the queue from somewhere and then do calls to Plone REST API. So the idea is quite the same as it was for collective task queue, but now the consumer for the task queue is in Plone frontend instead of the Plone backend. And with this idea, we need no changes at all for Plone backend, and we should be able to provide this as a add-on for Plone frontend instead.
Yep, indeed. Yeah, and it's, as you said, it should work the same way since we have the async loop in the Node server. Yeah, but the thing is that we have to deal with REST API calls, process them, QE somehow. It's what we were doing, right? And we decided not to QE in any pops up provider, but in using content type just for know that it's possible, right? And then the loop server will be consuming that QE bit by bit, launching the task to a backend client, for example, or a couple of backends. Yeah, that depends on the setup that we want in there, and then process it in the same way that you will do with a collective task queuing, right? And that's the beauty of all, because we have one thing running in one place, but you are also able to move to the other side and it still work, right?
Yes. And while we were experimenting with that, it was fun to use this Plone through the web low coding feature. So up to the last working version with the task queue, we were able to save the queue actually in Plone. So we created Plone content type for task queue folder and then content type for those tasks. And in Volto middleware, we were just creating content in Plone as tasks. So it was fun that we were able to get started with this queuing with just Plone and Plone built-in features.
Yeah.
Through the web content types and then use Plone workflow engine for keeping track which task has been already consumed, and use Plone REST API search for getting the task that has not been consumed yet.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot that. Yeah, it's true. We changed the state of the object to mark it as done.
Yes. So of course that makes no sense for huge task queues. Then you would create a lot of content for Plone and your ZODP would get bloated. Or I don't know how it works in Rails storage. The history part, does the Rails storage keep history? Anyway, there will be a lot of old tasks there. But it was fun to try out, and well, it was. You also got like visual view for the task when you used Plone. We could have collection to show that these are still to be consumed and these have been consumed, and when those have been consumed. Yeah. So if there were very few tasks, then it might make sense, but maybe not at the end.
Yeah.
So next week when I hopefully get back to this, I'll make it for Redis instead. I already did look some libraries used with Redis.
Oh, Okay.
So Volto
Nice.
frontend will connect to Redis and then push those tasks to Redis and read them from the Redis and and
Yeah.
do
I
the
mean,
thing.
should work either way.
Yeah, it should work. Well, the downside is that then we don't have visual view for that data. So then you need to use some external Redis user interface to see what's in that Redis.
Yeah.
So with Plone 6, so you have Volto
Yep.
address browser addresses, and then by default you only go to the content addresses, and you have views for managing with the content. But then you can also implement custom routes in the Volto front end, and that has been exciting exciting when developing with Plone 6 and Volto. That of course it's a little bit more confusing if you have some address. So where is that address? Is it in configured in Volto, or is it Plone content? And well, I guess it cannot be nowadays. You only call backend through those API addresses, so there are no like Plone backend addresses anymore directly. So every address you see the Plone 6 are with Volto are either content from Plone backend or root in Plone frontend.
Yes.
But anyway, it's exciting that you can extend Plone frontend routes with add-ons.
Exactly. Yeah. You can extend the middleware, the Express middleware, which runs in the node server, and then extend it whatever you want. You can write custom endpoints, but these endpoints will live in the front end server, not in your backend server, right? And you can consume in them either way, right? And you can do crazy things. For example, the proxy, we have a proxy. I don't know if you're aware of, but we have a proxy in our node server that proxy every request to the backend. So you don't have to deal with cores, right? And this is also a development nicety that we have in place since quite some years ago. And it's run by the node server. I always say that the node server is our hidden Plone 6 weapon, right? And because it allows you to do things that at some point Plone is not able to, right? And yeah, who knows what what we have saved for it for the future, right?
Yeah, it gives me mixed feelings that on the other hand, Plone 6 is more complex because of these two services, Plone backend and Plone frontend. But on the other hand, if you only see Plone backend as an API, as a REST API, then it's not so complex anymore. Then you only have that one Plone frontend code base you need to understand. So previously, when you were customizing Plone 5 and the Plone backend, then you were unable to avoid all the layers in all Plone. All the ways to make views, all the features of traverse and all those.
Yeah.
So
you
eventually,
have to know.
yeah, eventually you run into those, and you had to learn those. But now in Plone, at least for now in Plone front end, everything looks the same and works the same.
Yeah.
Of course, Plone front end now, so it's React.js with Redux, and it's like raw React.js using prop types for typing. So JavaScript goes forward as fast paced as ever, and now all the new projects are already TypeScript and everything. But yeah, so it might be that in sooner or later you run into add-ons that have been written in TypeScript, and then you
in fact, Red Turtle guys are using TypeScript in add-ons, and which is fine.
Yes.
I mean, the good thing about these is that you don't care. I mean, and as long as you stick to the thing that you are doing, I mean, and the build process allows you, then you can do anything, right?
Yes.
And that's the nice thing.
Yeah, but
That's
it's
the nice thing.
slowly add layers again.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons that we didn't want to push for having TypeScript by default in Volto yet, because it's yet another layer of complexity and another layer of errors to know how to fix, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't want, we wanted to simplify as much as possible and reduce the number of layers of the learning curve that leads to the front end in Plone, right? And
Yeah.
that was the reason.
Let's see how many years you managed to do that.
Yeah.
Keep it that
Yeah,
simple.
could be that we cannot run from it during the next years, but yeah, we'll see.
So I was now looking for this async task queue components we have here. So it basically it registers currently one middleware in the configuration, and that middleware then it restarts polar loop that will, well, now currently every second it poll Plone for new tasks. In future we could use a Redis subscribe so that we would get the task immediately once they are pushed into the task queue, so no longer polling.
Nice.
And then it also did register those middleware routes that we would then call from Plone front-end components to queue the tasks. And well, we didn't find like perfect way to that which task we should queue. We only had one example here. So we needed to pass some data all the way to the API calls, to intercept the API call and then make it call the task queue endpoint instead of the actual endpoint. And well, that was the one that was more complex than should have been. So we need to override Redux action to be able to pass flag that this task should actually be queued as an async task, and then at the very end we were able to catch that flag in the API helpers, and there here somewhere we have.
The thing is that Volto only knows about the backend as a server to query, right? And we need to tell Volto, hey, you know what? You have another backend to be, so you are able to query not only the API backend but also the node server, right? So we had to tap into the machinery that Volto does, how Volto does the requests, and then tell it, yeah, you know what? I don't want you to query the backend for this one, but query the node server.
Yeah.
And that's how we did it in here. Yeah. This is something that we might want to add to Volto, right? To Volto core, the ability of not only query the API backend, but also the node backend.
So now we need to override all the components from the visual component to the API components, but then we would only need to customize the visual component to include that server flag with the Redux action and then capture it in our custom code, hopefully. Later it would be simpler. And so up to this we had this working well, and then we were thinking how should we notify user for these tasks, and just for fun we want to learn how do these web notification APIs work, and that was a rabbit hole.
Yes.
So we needed to learn how to use web workers with Volto, and then we tried to do some naive things, try to call with our custom raw code, just writing our own code to send the notifications, and then we quickly learned that okay, there are too much cryptography things. We want to use existing libraries for that. And after that I also learned that because our browser may like update its subscription at any point, we should keep track of which browsers are listening to which notifications from which tasks. So we need to actually keep track at the back end which subscriptions we have. And well, that would have been ugly thing to do with Plone Cube. Now when I'm doing this with Redis, it will be simpler and more nice, and but still work. And I like try to do shortcut, but at the end we just should have been following the example from Mozilla to use notifications API. Anyway, that it was fun to learn. I think we kind of learned how the APIs work. It did take like 3 weeks, I think.
Yes.
But eventually we learned it. But now it's just that experiment just broke our example of code base, and now we need to refactor these hopefully next week. But from that, so I mentioned we need to have web worker for this thing. So if I would be writing this Volto async worker, Volto task queue in TypeScript, then we would have like raw JavaScript for the worker, and then React.js for the Volto part, and then TypeScript for the add-on. So then you would have already 3 different layers.
Yeah.
So that will keep adding. And is it still sure that like TypeScript is the final answer for JavaScript?
I don't know. What I know is that there are super fanboys of it out there, and God, they are quite pushy.
Well, it might be. It has been living quite well so far. But like we thought that React.js is the final thing for JavaScript user interfaces, and I guess it's still the most widely used. But now everyone is pushing Vue.js already.
Yeah. Who knows? JS pillow fight that runs forever. I mean, we thought that it will end, but it never ends. Yeah.
Okay. So, what's next?
Well, finish this during the next session, right? Yeah.
Something we have learned, I think, during this spring is that 1 hour per week with live coding, it's just not enough for completing anything. So you always lose time. You always lose some time from the hours for the setup, and then of course we want to do some chit chat, and we want to branch a little just to have fun, and because we see only once per week, so also discuss some other topics. And well, and when you do live coding, you do surprisingly a lot of typos and small errors that can take a lot of time.
The pressure of life. Yeah, but still, I think that we accomplish quite a few things in such a small time frame, right? And and as long as it's fun.
I like this format for experimenting things, because with you and Timo, so Timo Stollenberg is usually also with that. You have so much information of Plone and Volto, and also ideas, so that with your help, almost any problem is solvable.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have answers for everything, and we have still a lot of questions and how to do things. But at least for the things that is already in there, we know the quirks, we know what's left, what it is in there, what is not in there, what's missing, and I guess that's a point also. Yeah.
And when you only do this, when you have 1 week between this session, then you forget everything you did last time.
That's the other thing.
And well, then you come like out of the box again to the same problem. So that
Yep.
might also help solving the issues. Of course, that's very slow thing. So not for any critical stuff.
Yep.
So for a long time, I've been saying that we just, or I should learn, I should use your knowledge to learn how to make Volto add-ons. I haven't made single add-on myself. I think at work I did have a project where I refactored our code into add-ons with help of the other developers, but we still had everything in a single repository. So we did have Volto project that had like internal add-ons, but we never separated those and published those separately. So
Yeah.
I think with help of you, we need to fix some of these experiments into separate add-on.
Yeah. We should do that at some point. Yeah, we also do that. So we have internal add-ons that lives in the project, very much the same like you do with Plone, that you run a build out and then the policy add-on, and then you add other add-ons in the same repo, so you don't have to deal with several repos as well. And it works quite well using Mrs. Developer. It allows you to do that. It works very much the same like the Python counterpart. So you can say, hey, this add-on only lives here, and you don't have to go to GitHub to get it. And yeah, I mean, and an add-on is no much more than an index file that points to things, right? And that's the nice thing, that you can only start with that, and it works right away because the add-on infrastructure is so good, and that it allows you to do that, right? And yeah, so this is the package. It was done initially by Eric Briol, and yeah, he did an amazing job. And yeah, it almost provides you the same functionality like the Python counterpart. Right? And yeah,
I think that would make fun story. How Plone developers, Plone community comes to JavaScript community and brings their tools with them.
Absolutely. And it's amazing because the JavaScript ecosystem doesn't have something like that. I mean, it might. We stopped looking for them because since we have already what we wanted, and allows us to work as we used to do it in Python. But yeah, I mean, it's very much necessary, and keeps your mental sanity sane, safe. I mean, yeah.
Is it that JavaScript project use monorepository approach for fixing similar issues?
Yes, but then you need a way to link things together, and yeah, Yarn allows you to do that with workspaces, and we use ourselves workspaces to work out some limitations. But yeah, it only works for monorepos, right? What if you have the other code in other repos?
Yes,
right?
yes. At Plone, we have used to have repo per project.
Yeah. And we do too also. And in our nowadays in our largest Volto projects, you have a lot of add-ons from there, and then you grab here there, and then you develop them or not, or you just pull them. But yeah, it's quite common that your Mrs. Developer list is big, as you used to have in Python, right? At the end in a big project. Yeah.
So GitHub collective organization is still the place for Volto add-ons.
Yes, absolutely. And we have the awesome Volto that here we try to curate all the most important, the most developed and maintained products, the most useful as well. Yeah. So here they are also categorized by the layout ones, the widgets, the blocks. Yeah.
Okay.
Here is quite updated. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. So now now that I have you there and still a couple of minutes, a couple of hard questions. So at first, which is the currently like must use grid block for Volto, the right grid block?
The right one is the one that is in PR in Volto core.
Oh,
yeah,
so there is.
we are working already in bringing the grid block. I mean, yeah, the grid, since we agreed that grids in Volto or in modern layouts does not work as well, right? So this freewheel is not that a thing, right, anymore. So we decided that to create this row column and rename it to row column block. And it will be a block that, it will allow you to put things in a row, but also to put things in a column and change that seamlessly. So you can try the video you want, and you can take a look. So you have a grid block, but you're able to put it as a column with this switcher and add new things or move them around and change it again to a column and then reorder it as a column, right? So why the column thing? Why the column thing? Imagine that you have a group of blocks that you want to have the same background, right? So imagine you have a set of blocks and you want that set of blocks have shared the same background. You could go block by block and then set the background and hope that the margins between the blocks allows you to do so. Or you can create a column block and say, okay, all this column has this background column, and that's it. And that's also, I think it's also a nice feature. And the ability of switch between them also, I think it's a great feature. So let's say that, that now you want a row, but tomorrow you want a column. So you will have to move them over out of the grid and then make them again. It will be kind of cumbersome.
Is it still that there is only one column or only one row in one block?
Yes, that will remain like this, and we think that it's a good option to
have. like not full mosaic editor in single block.
No, because it can be done, and EA has a block that allows you to do something like that. But we still think that it's not the way to go. And modern layouts, it's not that you can put things whatever in your page. Modern layouts always work with white white blocks or pieces of blocks, right?
Yeah, that works for mobile.
Yes, and we think that it's the way to go.
And then the other question: what's the state of Slate? I haven't.
Slate will be it's the only blocker. It's the only blocker for Plone 6 to happen. So we want Slate in core, and we will be actively working during next week sprint in the Beethoven sprint that will happen in Bonn next week. And we will address this. I mean, Volto 16 will be the next Volto version, and it's the one that we will working there. And it will contain Slate by default. And we plan to take draft out of Volto and use, if someone needs it still in Volto 16, we plan it to have to be an add-on, right?
But it will use the Slate from the add-on, so Slate will not be put in the core.
No, we probably will put it on core, not spreading the things all the way in core, but having its own space. But it won't be just drop Volto Slate into Volto. I mean, I think we will make some polish and some adaptations in there. So I think it will be the thing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yay. No, thanks to you.
Okay, so I think we are up on our time. So thank you, Victor, again.
Thanks,
and
Asko, as always.